republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll ask for a roll call.
Newberry?
Here.
Crowner?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Lees?
Here.
Young?
Here.
I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our consent agenda, we have 7 items. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve is presented. Support.
Motion and support. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Council and staff reports. Greg?
Public Works has been working on sidewalks. If you have any questions for Mike on that, they're nearly complete. They've got the one sidewalk in front of the house that will be next. That section in front of the empty lot will simply be painted, as I noted on my prior 2 updates, temporarily. We're talking to the homeowner. They're interested in selling that lot, so they're interested in having curb and gutter and bringing that out and eliminating that parking area. If that does not happen in the near future, we could easily add a raised sidewalk on the backside instead of an at-grade sidewalk. But it seems like we should wait and see if they're going to move forward with that, because then we would have the same curb and gutter that we have everywhere else. But the church has been great to work with, and amenable to how things have been going, and in return we pull out some of the bushes, but it helps us in the sidewalk as well. We'll probably add a tree or 2, and now we have on both sides of the street you'll be able to have pedestrian access. The trail's on track. Tonight there's an agreement that we'll talk about a little bit as well. You're going to need an email on city administrator evaluation. We need to get that set up. We're doing staff evaluations now as well. They were due today at 5 o'clock. If you haven't submitted them already. Self-evaluation. We're on a stormwater presentation. The slides that I had up there earlier during the discussion, we want to pull up and kind of run through those slides with you so you have a little bit better idea on the stormwater information. Planning Department, Casey's is moving forward, reviewing the site plan, a few things to tweak there. Been dealing with a number of nuisances and rental properties. Updating iWork to make sure that we have a good system from the start, and that's been going very well. Mark and Kelly have been diving into that. Catching up a number of permits that people failed to provide or did not provide. Got 4 roofs in this week, for example. Tracking them down. There's just things but there's also been several new permits issued and that have been done properly, and we're also out working with SCC to help them get their certificate of occupancy, and we'll be working with the S&G construction to make sure that we have document to support the certificate of occupancy before it's issued. That's really all I've got.
Thank you.
One thing I want to add to that is SEC came to us about some trees out of our tree bed that we started last year, so we was able to furnish them. I believe they took 10 trees. They had a program going where they're planting trees out, so we are getting use out of the seedlings as we get them in and grow them a year and moving them out.
That's good. Jesse?
A couple things. That Tahoe, we were able to get a 2023 model that you guys just approved in the consent agenda. So it was, they have it, it's ready. I have to go pick it up. They want it off the lot. We were getting it scheduled to get the equipment installed into it. So it'll be a couple several weeks before it'll be on the road, but it'll probably be setting out back here for us to use in the meantime if we need to transport anything or whatever we need to do. So thank you very much. It saved, for having that 2023 model, it probably saved $5,000 plus instead of getting a 2024 model. So luckily they had one still available, so we were able to get that picked up. Reminder, trick or treat is next Tuesday. No, 2 weeks from now, from 2 weeks from yesterday, excuse me. Just remind people that they need to be careful. There'll be tons of kids out walking the streets, running across the streets, all that. So just be mindful between the hours of trick or treat. On Saturday, October 28th, the fire department and police department was invited over to trunk a treat at Heartland Harley Davidson from noon to 2 p.m. So we'll probably have a truck over there along with the squad car. They're going to put us where we have easy access if we need to leave for an emergency or whatever. So that was a good thing by that. And the training grounds are coming along. We were donated about 2 yards of concrete today. That didn't cost us anything, but we got some things formed up and some concrete poured today for out there. We're kind of replacing control building that we use for our propane car burns, where we burn cars with propane. We had vandalism out there last year where somebody came and stole all this copper piping and cut all that out. So we're replacing it with plastic pipe. So that was also donated. So we're coming along out there getting everything put back together, getting it cleaned up.
Thank you. Anything from the clerk's office? Okay. No. Anything on finance?
Angie's attending Ascension tonight. She's on the video as well for questions, learning about the legislative changes in budget. Sent me a PowerPoint presentation. It looks thoroughly complicated and fun. I can't wait to start the budget process.
Okay. Council reports? Kathy?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Andy?
A couple things, I'm sure somebody will mention it, but coffee with us tomorrow at 8 to 10 a.m. out at Westland Mall, if anybody wants to come out. I'm not sure, where's coffee from tomorrow? Lost Bear?
Where's the coffee from?
Yeah.
Lost Bear?
Excellent. Let's see, yesterday we had the chamber bi-monthly meeting. Courts opens November 11th is the first tournament. They're going to do a ribbon cutting at some point, so I'll make sure you all get invited to that. Also spoke at the Greater Burlington Leadership Group this morning, which Katie is involved in, and wanted to say that's a great thing that we have an employee there doing that, and hopefully we'll continue to have people take part in that. So, thank you.
John?
I don't have anything.
Therese?
I don't have a thing.
Oh, just two things. One, received many favorable comments on the sidewalk work on Melville. Mike, the folks are happy that we got it going. Some of the sidewalks to the schools is good and just looks good. And so thanks a lot, Mike, and keep up the good work there. Second thing, tomorrow evening and from 3:30 to 5:30, there's a REAP meeting out at Stars Cave. That's the it helps determine, set priorities where the conservation dollars that the state of Iowa gives to this part of the state and where that'll go. So every 2 years they hold a district meeting and Chris Lee will pull it together and there'll be a state rep there. But that's tomorrow afternoon from 3:30 to 5:30. Everybody's welcome. Went 2 years ago, learned a lot about it, and plan to go tomorrow night.
Thank you. I have a proclamation, which I will read. This is proclamation for Red Ribbon Week, October 23rd through the 31st. Whereas alcohol and drug abuse in this nation have reached epidemic stages, whereas it's imperative that the visible, unified prevention education efforts by community members be launched to eliminate the demand for drugs And whereas the National Red Ribbon Campaign offers citizens the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to drug-free lifestyles, no use of illicit drugs, no illegal use of illegal drugs. And whereas the National Red Ribbon Campaign will be celebrated in every community in America during Red Ribbon Week, October 23rd through the 31st. And whereas business, government, parents, law enforcement, media, medical institutions, religious institutions, schools, senior citizens, service organizations, and youth will demonstrate their commitment to healthy, drug-free lifestyles by wearing and displaying red ribbons during the week-long campaign. And whereas the community of West Burlington, Iowa, further commits its resources to ensure the success of the Red Ribbon Campaign, now therefore be it resolved that I, Ron Teeter, Mayor of the City of West Burlington, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through the 31st as Red Ribbon Week and encourage its citizens to participate in drug prevention education activities not only during Red Ribbon Week but during the year long, making a visible statement that we are strongly committed to a drug-free West Burlington. Issued this day, October 18th, 2023. I guess at this point, do we have any citizens who want to bring forward information on business that will be attended to during this session? If so, come up to the mic and state your name and address.
Michael Asher, president of the college. I have to slip out real quick here, but I wanted to come and say, first of all, thank you for the trees. We're going to actually get those in the ground on Saturday. We tried to do it last Saturday, but hopefully, having it in the ground, I really appreciate the support. In a lot of ways, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming out to our rec center open house and giving your comments. And I just appreciate all of what you're doing and the efforts that you're putting forward. And just wanted you to know that I'm thinking about you and appreciating what you're doing. And I still hold a conversation with that man over there. We've said that a number of times, we just haven't made it happen. So, but I do have to leave. I've got students to leave here in just a few minutes. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Ash, why were you here tonight?
Well, I was here, one, to say thank you.
No, not so fast.
But also to support the effort of Greater Burlington Partnership and our fundraising and commitments along that line. So we, the college, are involved, so we're committed to that. We have been for many years, and we've re-upped for this year, this session, season. But I just wanted to support the effort of Ella, my good friend here, Jeremy. And so that was the one reason I wanted to come. But while I was here, I wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good work out there.
Anyone else? If not, then I'll move into new business. First item of new business is a presentation of financial audit for fiscal year 2022, 2023.
We have the public hearing, Your Honor.
Oh, sorry, I jumped over that. Well, in that case, I will open a public hearing.
Tonight, we have the CIP on the agenda. We reviewed that at the last work session, made the the additions that we noted. You have the staff scoring on there as well, and the council average, which we'll tweak in the future so that you can see a larger separation there added the stormwater master plan. And the two fire department items are on there as well. Facility items, projects and facilities. But I don't really have anything new to add based on our discussion at the last work session, but just glad to finally have a CIP.
Any other comments on this?
The link on the site doesn't work.
I just clicked on it.
There, I mean, twice, third time's a charm.
Magic.
Seeing no other comments, then I will close the public hearing and move on to new business at this time, since there is no old business. Okay, so the first item of new business is the presentation of final financial audit for the fiscal year 2022, 2023. And
Okay.
You want me to go ahead and start?
I just going to mention to council, we have Mia Fromelt from Monsac and Fromelt, Certified Public Accountants with us tonight. On your table in front of you is a short presentation, PowerPoint, summarizing information. You had received the audit previously. And I just want to note that it's great to work with Sarah and Mia, Monsac and Fromelt. Not only excellent CPAs, but they provide a lot of good information and feedback and information to city staff, which is very much appreciated. It's been excellent to have them on board. With that, Mia, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Greg. So as Greg mentioned, I do have a summary presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions that you have from the audit documents as well. The first slide or page of the presentation just summarizes the year-end audit. And we performed a financial statement audit and wanted to point out that you have an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. That's the highest level of an auditor opinion you can receive. So that's good news. In the opinion, we do emphasize that you're on the cash basis of accounting. That's accepted in the state of Iowa, but it's part of the report. We also perform an audit under government auditing standards, and that means we take a look at your internal controls and also compliance with laws and regulations. And the results from the internal controls and compliance would be in the back of the bound document. I wanted to point out that in internal controls, in the prior year, there are levels of internal controls. The highest is material weakness, and that goes to significant deficiency. And last year, there were some material weaknesses reported. The city has made changes, added additional controls, and as a result, those were reduced to a significant deficiency. So I just wanted to have kudos to the team in taking those down to a much lower risk level. In terms of compliance, the state of Iowa has a section that we're required to report, and so that's what you'll see in the back. There are no material compliance findings to report to you tonight. It's just all required reporting. And then anytime an entity expends $750,000 or more in federal programs, a federal audit's required, and the city did not meet that threshold this year. The next slide compares receipts of your governmental funds between fiscal year 22 and 23. And the change year to year was actually $9,500. It was net, obviously 0% change really. The main changes you're going to see are fluctuations. So if you look at property tax and tax increment, you're seeing one go down, one go up. There's changes in your assessed valuations that are causing that fluctuation. And you did have an increase in tax rate this year. But overall, the change of property tax and tax increment financing tax was about just under 4% in total. Other city taxes is the local option sales tax that had a slight decrease this year. And then intergovernmental is going to be your federal and state funding. Some of that is from your Gear Avenue Trail funding, so that's why you see a fluctuation there. And then charges for services increased about 13%. That is, you had 23 commercial permits issued during fiscal year '23, which obviously is more and higher than 7 in the prior year. Okay. In terms of disbursements on the next slide, when you compare the expenditures between fiscal year '22 and '23, you'll see an increase of 23%. So total disbursements this year were $5.1 million compared to $3.9 million last year. And it sticks out, it's largely in public safety. Public safety increased $865,000 or 38% from the prior year. That is primarily purchases of the fire truck, fire equipment, police vehicles, police equipment. So of that total change, just over $800,000 was expended on those capital type items this year. Culture and recreation is also the big change. That's the third column over. You'll see that that's increased $176,000 or 48%, and that's the impact of the pool. So wages for the pool were approximately $102,000, and then you have some obviously supplies, but that's where you're seeing that pool opening have an impact. And then last, I just wanted to point out the operations of your water and sewer funds. The water and sewer funds both include receipts from bond draws. So in the water fund, there's approximately $2.1 million in revenues of bond receipts, and then in the sewer service, approximately $500,000 this year. But it's important to note that both water and sewer ended in a positive cash position for fiscal year '23, and both water and sewer were able to report positive operations. So if you compare just charges for the utility compared to operating routine costs, they do cash flow those routine costs. Are there any questions?
I had just one question for you, and I don't know how to tell you where this is. It was the letter that was kind of included in the packet, but is not actually inside the packet itself.
Yes, the control, we call it like management advice letter or control deficiency letter. Yeah.
There was just a statement I just wanted clarification on. It said something about there were material misstatements detected as a result of the audit procedures, and they were corrected. Is that anything we need to know about, or? No, we're required to let you know that there were journal entries as part of the year-end audit process. Okay. And so attached to that letter should be the detail of those journal entries. Okay. But it's just to let you know that there were changes made to year-end numbers that you might have gotten in a draft format. And then every one of these audits I've ever seen, whether it be city or school, they always, for us, talk about different duties for different people and having backups. And is that anything, is that every small town of our size has that and we just leave it on there forever, or is that ever solved?
It is solved. Technology has helped that. I would tell you, yes, 20 years ago, you probably saw that, but technology has really made a change to that, and it's very possible to do that in a smaller entity.
I guess what we do is provide a written response typically, or throughout the process on some of those things, and make changes where appropriate in processes, or frankly, in some cases, simply say that with our current staffing,
right,
2 in finance and 2 that cover water or clerk duties, I mean,
Right.
We simply indicated on here, for example, that, we're changing that process, but we did tweak, we may have changed something, as an example, there's a statement in the back regarding the master file, in the payroll software, but with, 2 finance employees that currently have access. That said, the finance manager is running audit reports entirely to review changes made to the system. So in lieu of making the exact recommendation that Bond Sector Fromelt has made, we're doing something slightly different, probably not, and so we'll probably still get dinged next year, but, that was our recommendation or comment on that particular item.
And there's definitely a cost-benefit analysis to it that is not part of the audit process, but I understand that's part of the city's process. Oh.
But it's been a great educational tool. I'm real happy with having Monsac and Fromelt on board. Appreciate everything.
We do too. It was a good audit this year. Everything was ready to go, so.
So Angie, since you carried the bulk of the audit representing the city and making this happen, any comments for us?
No, we're just, every year's more learning and trying to make it better and flow easier and.
So ready for this upcoming year, huh?
Well, we'll see.
Based on what she's learning today regarding the budget process, it'll be an interesting year.
Gotcha, thanks.
Do we need a motion to approve this audit or?
Accept?
We don't need to take any action, do we?
Okay.
Thanks.
In that case, I'll move on to item 2.
Thank you.
Angela, you staying on?
Thank you.
Sign it off?
Yeah, I'm staying on, but I'm gonna turn my video off.
Okay, we have a discussion of the status of our K-9 program, considering authorizing a K-9 officer training. Jesse, you want to speak to that?
Yes, we're currently, I feel, on track of funds raised. Met with Officer Menon and Sergeant Melson, who's helping kind of lead that portion of the fundraising. There's some options that we've also spoke with Greg about, and I think we're on process. We're on track. The training is coming up here in a couple weeks. We do have up until February to pay for the training that we're sending Officer Menon to. We're continuing getting support from the community. I know they were out last week again talking to some major corporations throughout town that were talking about giving us a monetary donation. We just don't have the totals yet. So it's not quite where I want it to be, but again, we've come along quite a bit. We don't have an exact date of when the next training would be offered for this training that Officer Menon's going to in Ohio. So if he doesn't go in November, we're not quite for sure when the next opportunity would be to get going to that training. So that's one big issue that I have right now for him not going this, in November.
How long is the training?
It's 120 hours, which is, they're doing it in 15 days, 12 days. So they got, 10-hour days for 12 days in a row is the training for 120 hours. So that's what the training will be. Start on Monday, and then they'll finish 2 weeks later on Friday. They'll work Saturday, Sunday. 120 hours is what the training. The reason they do that, again, they know hurts the departments for having officers gone for an extended period of time. 120 hours should be a 3-week course. They get it done in 2 weeks, which helps out, you know, everybody, get them back home, get everything involved. We've got some great donations from our community. So we're working with them now, and we're still get stuff, not every day, but we still get other donations that is just not money, you know, kennels and food, gift certificates, equipment, all that kind of adds up to it. And I know Angie's got a good list of everything that's been donated since we started on July 4th of this campaign of getting a K-9 unit.
What's the date in November? I'm sure it's before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
It starts November 6th.
November 6th. He'll leave on that Sunday to drive out to Ohio. It is held in Ohio. Good thing about it, Burlington officer, Mr. Beckman is the K-9 instructor for Burlington, or handler for Burlington, one of the handlers. He works with the company that we're working with of getting the K-9. So they've started kind of a Southeast Iowa K-9 organization for monthly training that several agencies are involved with, including agencies outside of our county, Fort Madison, Keokuk, Lee County. There's several agencies that are involved in this training, and they go to different communities. Again, we've had donations from Jim's Towing, bringing cars out for dog searches on vehicles. We use the training grounds out the fire department for building searches. Anything like that that's available for us to use for, you know, training is greatly appreciated. And I know Officer Menon has worked quite a bit with Officer Beckman from Burlington. We do have a dog that is available that Officer Beckman has been training in our community already, and Officer Menon has been working with that dog already. So we have one. They've worked well together. I've spoke with Officer Beckman. It's been a while, but everything's has been going pretty good with training already that we're kind of doing on his own right now that he's already participating in. So
will you take the dog with you on the 6th, or there'll be a different?
nope, he will take that dog that he's been working with. And everything's, like I said, everything's matched up good. No miscommunication so far with Officer Menon and the dog that he's been working with now. It's been flowing pretty good. He gives us update. He gives me and Sergeant Dunham and Melson, he gives them updates of what he's doing, what's going on and all that. So it's been working very well with help with Burlington Police Department and getting, this in our community.
So the plan would be to send Officer Menon to training November 15th unless there's objection from the council. And the officers have committed to continue the fundraising effort. They've got several identified and some communication efforts identified as well. And have submitted letters of request for funding. They're committed to getting the project funded. Without having 100% of the funding in place at this point in time, we wanted to come back to council and make sure there was no objections to proceeding with the training at this point in time. But the officers have committed to continuing the fundraising effort. Timing just isn't the best.
Okay.
I think so too.
Seems like the council is in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
We'll continue, like I said, we'll continue. We're trying to get a little bit more professional video done so we can get, start keeping those posted on the city Facebook and the police department Facebook page, going around thanking the organizations, and there'll be plenty of video coming back with Officer Menon with his training that he'll provide us that we'll be able to, show here in maybe November. We can put it out in the weekly release to you guys, just kind of showing what he did during his training. So we just like the support from the council. We really appreciate it, and it's going to be a huge blessing for our community for a multi-purpose dog that we're getting for just officer safety, community safety, and helping us out a lot. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Officer Menon.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
I'll move on to our next item. Greater Burlington Partnership Request for contribution to the Partnering for the Future campaign.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for having us back again. We welcome the opportunity and received some feedback from the last time that we visited, so very much welcome the opportunity to add some greater depth and clarity to what the Greater Burlington Partnership does and how investments like the one that West Burlington City has made in the previous campaign and that we're asking in our next 5-year priorities, what do we do with that? How is that used and how does that benefit West Burlington? So appreciate the opportunity to coming back. Also want to note the support in the room. Dr. Ash, who had to leave. Ryan Nagrocki from Midwest Realty is with us here this evening, and we appreciate that as well. Before we bring up any of our notes and talking points that we came prepared with, I wanted to find out first, in case there was anything that was on your mind that maybe hasn't come back to us yet, if there were any specific areas of interest or concern regarding the 5-year priorities that we put before you the last time we were here, or reflection that you're having. Anything you want to make sure that we touch on this evening?
Well, I'm not for sure what you're going to touch on, so I can't answer that.
Sure, I just want to make sure that if there's something that I have a specific question about or hoping that we address, that we try to touch on it. Otherwise, we'll just kind of dive right in and we can get to some questions at the end if you prefer.
I think that'll work.
Okay, all right, fantastic. One of the things that I was asked to elaborate on was how does the Greater Burlington Partnership as an organization, how are we with intentionality coming into working with and highlighting West Burlington as a community and as the businesses in West Burlington? In the last year, we had 3 major events in West Burlington, Greater Burlington Partnership events that we hosted in West Burlington. 2 of those were business after hours. Most recently, business after hours at the SEC campus, and the other business after hours that was held in West Burlington was actually at Midwest Realty. We also had the public officials reception just across the street here, and many of you were able to come right across the street to that event. So that was 3 of our major events in the last year or so that we held here in West Burlington. We also have recognized 2 West Burlington businesses just within the last year. One of them last week, which is Big River Resources, received the Manufacturer of the Year recognition from our organization. And also this past January, Ryan Nagrocki from Midwest Realty Group was recognized as the Business Person of the Year at our annual event, an event that many consider to be the event of the year in the West Burlington area. Also, we work very, very closely with West Burlington Schools, Lisa Beams, and the folks there. Lisa was just at our board meeting on Tuesday and shared with everyone that she's announced her retirement Good for her, sad for us. We've just thoroughly enjoyed working with Lisa. A recent example, I can go back further, but I want to talk about like right now as a starting point. The West Burlington School is working to make sure that students, high school students, have job shadow opportunities. I believe it's part of a profile book and kind of a graduation standard. They want every single high school student to have an opportunity to do an internship or a job shadow where they get out of the building into a business and explore further what a career might look like. Our talent development program manager just recently placed nearly 50 West Burlington high school students in businesses for job shadowing. The vast majority, as many as she could get, in West Burlington businesses first, and either based on capacity or the interest of the high school student. There are a few that, of course, went into other businesses in the area. In addition to that, I've been working closely with Lisa Beams for the last couple of years. I give her a lot of credit and recognize her as an important ally in our efforts to bring our schools together across Des Moines County to have a more cohesive, shared working together on this career pathways and helping students find their way and helping them get connected to the businesses that are right here, help them understand that they don't have to move away, that West Burlington and throughout Des Moines County, there's great opportunities for them to build lives and have careers. And so one of the most recent things that we were able to accomplish was working on a shared calendar so that the schools throughout Des Moines County and SCC and the Greater Burlington Partnership have some shared dates early in the process so that we can be assured that we're able to bring programming to the most significant number of students possible. And so because of that, last year, we were able to have a shared professional development day just a few weeks ago. We had every single middle school and high school teacher from throughout Des Moines County out at SCC, so we had our event at the campus there. And we had a speaker come in from out of town. His name is Mark Perna, wrote a book called Answering Why, and has a career methodology that he promotes called the Career Decision Tree. So we had well over 400 teachers at that event, and afterward had a CTE working luncheon with just the CTE teachers where we debriefed and got into small groups and talked about how to implement better together collectively career pathway training for students. I am so excited at the inroads and the new relationships that we have just compared to even 4 years ago when I first came to town. Our schools are working together in new and exciting ways, and we're right there in the mix, as is SCC. With that, I think we'll kind of switch over to a little bit more of economic development type of topics, and then I can circle back if there's some other things that we want to touch on.
Good evening, Council. Jeremy Hess, Director of Economic Development. Thanks for letting me be here. We were expecting a representative from KPI, another West Burlington business, and I also can share with you Paul Zog from SG Construction wanted to voice his support, but he's got commitments at church tonight, so we respect that. So anyway, there's been a lot of activity, and I want to speak just a little bit about my role and kind of how I view economic development, and give you a couple examples of how I respect your borders, and I love West Burlington. I lived in West Burlington for 5 years myself when I first got here, but I don't put myself in borders necessarily. I mean, we just signed a new deal with a company called Toba Foods that you could stand outside here and throw a rock and hit them. I'm sorry it's not in your community, but You guys drew the lines, not me, so, but anyway, the point being is that it's another 150 jobs, 21 to $27 million in capital investment. We've reached out, we've connected them with every one of our local providers of HVAC, electrical, all the mechanicals, all that stuff to do those kind of improvements. And again, I don't, and I think you recognize too, your citizens are going to work there. Other citizens are going to work there. We do the same thing. We just got done with making our presentation to the city of Minneapolis, much smaller city. They have also increased their ongoing commitment. And I know that there's a lot of community pride in West Burlington. I feel that and I know that, and I respect that. But at the same time, our brochure doesn't say Minneapolis anywhere on the cover or whatever. We all live in this region. We live and work 30 miles is 30 minutes. We've made commitments to sites down in Lee County. Our organization spent $25,000 to do a study and geotechnic study next to the fertilizer plant because we realize that if a large project lands at that place, it's going to benefit all of us. They don't care where the people are coming from. It benefits all of us. So in one sense, I understand community pride, but I just don't want you to think there's ever any shying away from the things that will benefit you, your city, your citizens, your community directly. I don't look at it that way. And I know one of our big topics that we've given, some updates on fairly recently, the ABB building. And I can tell you, I'm bound by confidentiality agreements. All I can tell you is just be confident. Be a little bit more patient and be confident for some good things to happen there. We will get that over the finish line, and you've got a great asset in that building. So, attracting the business of deep root irrigation. Sometimes we attract a new business and we want to see great things happen really quick and big things happen. But I've met with them, and I encourage you to stop out and visit with Jeff and his operation and see the progress that they have made in that former bunker of a building, the Raider precast building. They are currently working on, they have a very complicated process. They're working on figuring out automation so that they can go from doing 100,000 units a week to 5 million units a week. And I used the example today in our leadership class of other businesses like KPI that started in a garage, like Weingard that started in a garage. And we continue to commit to helping our local businesses, regardless of where they sit, to expand and to grow, to have workforce and so forth. And I've said this many times, I've kind of drank the Kool-Aid on deep root irrigation. I think that you're going to be very proud of a very, very successful, large organization that has chosen West Burlington as their home. And so we continue to make efforts in that way. But just know that everything that our organization does is not mindless of borders, but it is mindful that we are a region. Every prospect that comes down from the state, I share with my counterparts in Lee County and in Henry County, as well as Louisa County, because as long as it lands in southeast Iowa and that investment comes here, it's going to benefit all of our citizens, all of our employers and community members and so forth. And so I work just as hard every day for whatever project comes, regardless of border. So I just wanted to share that with you, and would entertain any questions you might have about economic development and our efforts in that area.
See, Jeremy, would you elaborate for the council how you assisted KPI recently?
Well, KPI, there was this program from the state. It's called Manufacturing 4.0. It's something we're trying to get deep root irrigation to be interested in. But Manufacturing 4.0 is a grant program through the state that brings in and helps business study how to automate, how to get their manufacturing from a manual, hands-on approach to streamlining that. And this was in their blade business, and it was. I want to say it was $400,000 that they received to not only study the problem but integrate the solution, and so they benefited from that. And I don't ever want to, it wasn't Jeremy Hess dragging somebody over here, but you help guide somebody through a grant process, make them aware of the programs that are available, and then remove obstacles along the way. So. That was KPI, and Kevin was also supposed to be here tonight, but he couldn't. So I think we're all looking our clocks. We're going to the West Burlington volleyball game right after this. So anyway.
Another example that is, again, regional, but also what are its impacts in West Burlington is certainly that of housing. We've been here before. We created a housing task force, which city manager city administrator was part of, that led to the housing study for all of Des Moines County. We are currently working on framing up a 5-year housing standing committee that will work on implementing some of the strategies that are in there. We have stood and supported Ryan Nagrocki and his projects in West Burlington, written letters of support and approached folks up at the state in order to encourage some of the incentives that he's applied for to make those projects viable in West Burlington. And of course, when we bring projects to town that are going to create more good paying jobs, $25 and $30 an hour jobs, that not only helps the folks that live here who are able to take those jobs and lift their quality of life, but it also allows us to be able to attract people to come to this area, which helps West Burlington real estate and helps spur additional economic growth wherever those folks might choose to live in our region. The Iowa Army ammunition plant is going to have a tremendous impact over the years ahead. Police Chief Logan, I'll be reaching out to you shortly here. We're working on a Iowa Army ammunition plant impact meeting, and I'm constantly looking at my list and rethinking who else needs to be at the table, who else needs to be at the table. Safety and security and law enforcement is another piece, so I want to make sure that you're at the table for that. But housing is going to have a whole new challenge because of that, and there's going to be opportunities for West Burlington as well as our area as a whole. But tying back to Jeremy's comment about regionalism and understanding that we're bigger than even Des Moines County. One of the things that I've been working on, and it looks like it took another step today, is how can we put into use some buildings at Iowa Wesleyan University campus because of what happened there, and possibly put them into use for housing for these temporary construction workers that will be coming in. And I've been able to connect the right people to the right people, and I had a meeting today that indicates there might be something to that now. And you know, like Jeremy says, there's so many things that we do behind the scenes that we can't talk about, and we just have to say, you know, have faith, there is this piece and that piece and another piece that's going to come together, or has the potential to come together, and then the announcement comes. So much of what we do, in Councilmember Crowder, with what your real estate background, I know you can feel what I'm saying. So much of what we do requires hours, weeks, months, even years of behind the scenes before you ever get to the signing day, where the deal is done and it can be talked about publicly. But there isn't a day that goes by that Jeremy and I and the rest of our team up at the partnership office aren't rolling up our sleeves and saying, what can we do today to create an environment for business can prosper and our communities can prosper? And without a doubt, that includes West Burlington, whether it's the deliberate projects, the intentional opportunities that we have, such as working with Midwest Realty or working with KPI, or whether it's the other things that we do that happen in other communities but have that ripple effect that benefit West Burlington. So we appreciate the opportunity to come back and talk to you a little bit more about what we do and how we do it, how it benefits West Burlington, and we'd be happy to take any specific questions that you might have.
What about retail? I know you guys brought in Tractor Supply. Our mall is dwindling horribly bad. And then we've had the area where Kohl's is at, and there are going to be 2 other stores and a restaurant, I believe. And I don't know what we can do, how we can attract retail.
I'll speak to that. Just to be clear, we did not bring in Tractor Supply. I personally very rarely get involved in any retail, large retail attraction to this store or that store because it's risky business because we've got Huffman Farm and Home, and so am I going to go out and attract another Tractor Supply company that's going to cause difficulty for Huffman Farm and Home? The one I usually get is the Italian restaurant. What's the
Olive Garden.
Olive Garden. Why don't we get an Olive Garden? Well, we've got a guy downtown that's had a little Italian business for 30 years, and I basically when it comes to certain retail, now I understand the mall's a separate issue. Because that's a large project and it's not going to be all retail. I don't think anybody believes that. It's going to be mixed use or something's going to have to get creative there. But retail outlets show up and they come to a community when the math works and then there's a building. So they look at populations, they look at incomes. When it comes to retail, I'm pretty much hands off. And so now, however, we've worked in the past with trying to get call centers out to the mall. The mall is a unique issue that I would set aside and say I would work towards bringing a retailer to that facility because of the great need that is there. But as far as around Kohl's, if we have great new projects, new people coming into our community, there are entrepreneurs and business people that recognize that niche that they need to bring in a steakhouse or whatever else, and they'll do it. And they don't need us to give them money or incentives or anything else. They just do it because the math works. So, but I recognize the great need for a creative, comprehensive solution to what's going on at the mall. But it's also held in private hands. Somebody else owns that. I think, too, we've got a tremendous amount of work to do. We're just about out of ground out at the business park in Flint Ridge, and we've got work to do if we want to have a business park in West Burlington. We've got a lot of work to do together to make that a viable thing, and I very much want that, and that's part of our plan. It's in our 5-year plan that says we're going to have a business park in West Burlington by 2028. That's just part of the plan. But I can't do it all by myself. It's got to take everybody involved and so forth. So I hope I've answered your question. I'm ready to get to work, and Greg knows he can reach me anytime, and that's okay. Yep. Happens to me all the time. She usually gives me the stink eye.
I thought I had it shut off. It will be.
Quick follow-up on that. I've been talking to a company, some retail firms, retail strategies, retail recruitment firms that are working in 7 or 8 different Iowa communities right now. Have you ever worked with one of those firms? Mm-hmm. No? Okay. I might follow up separately and talk to you about that then. Okay. Thanks.
I'm assuming that after your kind of conference on Thursday of the end of the month here, that you'll have some sort of maybe a cohesive group that might talk together to get some plans working for either housing or maybe some retail on that end of things, if the community's going to grow by, the number of workers that are coming into the plant.
So, Mayor, regarding the Iowa Army ammunition plant, we have some immediate and then some ongoing strategies. So the first one is we wanted to have a project impact summit where we bring key people from the business and leadership in the communities together. We want folks from American Ordnance, folks who are managing this new construction project, people from the Army. I do not want to be their spokesperson. I tell them that on a regular basis because people ask Jeremy and I all kinds of questions about it, and I imagine that things up there are changing on a regular basis. So the information that we have is like our last conversation old, which was 3 weeks ago. We have a standing meeting with the folks out there. We get a few emails now and then, but things are pretty fluid. And so I don't want to repeat and be their spokesperson and have old information that's no longer relevant. So we're going to have a meeting, and those folks are going to be there to tell in their words and their timing, what's this project going to look like? What's the timing? Because everybody wants to know, when is the peak? How many people are coming? When are we going to feel it? How are we going to see it? I don't even know that they can answer all the questions that everybody has. I really don't know. But we're going to set that up. After this first meeting, we know that so far we've identified about 4 areas that I imagine we will have I don't know if I want to say task force, work teams, ongoing meetings and conversations, but we know housing is number 1. And we've got a lot of ideas. We are going to need RV parks. We're going to be looking at mobile home parks and see if they're fully utilized or if they can be brought back into utilization. We've already met, I've already met with the Southeast Iowa Property Owners Group. Do I have that right? I was just with them last week. I think they have over 100 members, landlords from a 3 or 4 county area. They were delighted to have me there, and they said, we'd like you to come back once a quarter. And so we'll see how that goes, but I'm going to go back and meet with them regularly to try to keep them apprised. But housing is going to be a big thing, and we're going to have to come at it from several different ways. The second one is going to be food service, making sure that our restaurants and our grocery stores understand what this is and what it isn't. What can they do to prepare? What do they do for expectations? What I don't want is for somebody to get too far over their skis and to get really excited about all the business and go to the bank and ask for a loan because they think they need to add on to their restaurant and create an extra dining room so they can seat another 50 or 100 people. And then 5, 6, 7 years from now, as we come back down off of this project, there's multiple projects, but as we come back down off of that, then all of a sudden, they're kind of hollering at us, going, where's the people to fill my restaurant? We have the same issue about hotels. I know our folks that are in the hotel business in the region have already heard from people, oh, you're throwing up a new hotel, right? Well, now, wait a minute. We throw up a new hotel, which you don't just put up a hotel. There's a whole process, and that could be a year or 2 before it would even be open or operational. But then what's the plan, and do we have the strategy to keep it occupied? So there's things we have to work through. In addition to food and lodging, transportation. What are the impacts on our roads? What are the safety concerns of the extra traffic counts? Is there any opportunity for park and ride or busing opportunities to get folks out there to take a few more personal vehicles off? I don't know what they all are. I'm going to be looking to our local law enforcement, and we're just here to make connections and then say, how can we help? And then wellness. We have had conversations with the hospital already. How did having the fertilizer project affect them in the urgent care in the emergency room, let alone at the clinic itself? So all of those things, those conversations have started. But I do imagine that as we work through the reality of what's coming, that there will be some pop-up meetings, there may be some ongoing meetings, but we're not quite there yet. We're going to start with this one meeting and then start wrapping our head around what needs to happen consistently.
Right now, we still don't know what we don't know. We talked to one person, oh, it's 10,000 people, they'll be here next week. And then, and you talk to the Army, they're like, oh, well, maybe in about 18 months, we might see, So it's still a fluid, so that's as Della said, first step is, let's get the right people in the room to kind of give us some reasonable expectations of when things might begin to ramp up and not get too, I don't know, over ourselves, but at the same time, like we've had these meetings down at the partnership with the Tiger Project, and that's kind of what drew us to this, is that it's very helpful to be able to tell businesses on a routine basis, here's the good information. This is when they're going to be here. This is how many. This is where they're going to be staying. Now we know, then we can prepare and act as a community.
If I could share one, how this actually works, and you're talking about it, but a firsthand perspective of working with the chamber. When somebody calls me and wants to bring in a business, the first thing I do is get them down with you guys. And they may not end up in West Burlington in the end, but if they're going to build something here, it benefits us. And getting all of you in a room leads to getting the right engineers to redo the building and finding the location, because there's not a great spot to find all the commercial property in town and the properties that need to sell and the land that's available. And you have everything right there in-house. Now, do I want you to promote West Burlington more? Yes. But when you see a new business open in town and it's something cool, a new added feature, a new brewery or something downtown, that benefits us and it adds to our entire region. And West Burlington would not have the majority of the things that we have, a college, a hospital, a Target, all these great things, without being part of this region, and that's what you promote. So thank you.
So do you agree that, no, let me back up. So how do you bring, like, the people that's going into GE? How do you connect that dot to that buyer from you?
Well, and every scenario is different, okay? But with the case of the former ABB building, that's now Phoenix Investment Group, so we know who that is.
Yep.
And maybe, well, I
guys
want to
over
point to
there.
Toba, because that was a unit. So that was a unique deal where it was a food grade facility that had 80,000 square foot of freezer space. So we went directly to a broker who deals nothing but food service. That's all they do, is work with food service companies all over the country. They've got these very in-depth databases, and they have all these contacts. They know this guy and that guy, and so that's how you put something like that together. Now, with ABB building, it's a little bit different. Phoenix Investment Group, first of all, they got a really good reputation, but the traction that we're getting now is because it actually came down as a lead from the state. It's been vetted. We've had visitors. Things are, but it's still completely up to that person making the investment and the company that owns the building for them to hook up and make it work. And it's, so a lot of times, and so generally what happens is they'll make a couple initial visits. The last two have always been on weekends, which is always kind of weird when they want to kind of fly in under the radar. But then they'll involve me and say, okay, here's the investment we're going to make. Here's the amount of jobs that we're going to create and the wages. I ask them for this stuff. And then we begin to ask the state for what incentive programs are available. What are the things, and then, we'll come to the city and ask, here's some hurdles that they might be having, whether that's water, whether that's wastewater, whether that's, we get the utilities involved. So I bring Alliant Energy in, and Alliant then, as long as we can get people early in the game, Alliant will offer that new business that's coming in, especially since the building sat vacant for so long, with an economic development incentive rate. So they'll give them a reduced rate of electricity for the first 5 years on a rolling scale. That makes a big difference to a company that's going to use a lot of electricity or gas. So there's no one way. Each one is always different. But that's, again, that's my role, is to not know all those things, but to know all the right people to pull together so that when they come, they can ask every person the expert and not have me say, well, I'll get back to you, or, whatever, we'll get word to you. We get the right people in the room, and that's what tends to make a difference when they come and they get it's all about risk aversion. They don't want to have any surprises a year down the road, so.
Well, your answer to the food place over here is great, your big database and all that, but I didn't understand, or I didn't get, how did the chamber bring the jobs, or the buying of that building to the people that's buying it? You weren't involved in that part, was you?
Yes.
How did that happen?
Absolutely.
Again,
it happened. Okay, so the first thing that does when the individual broker gets assigned to the building, I'm generally the first call that they make. Okay. And they will say, here's who we are, here's what we're trying to do, here's the rate of the thing, of the building, and so forth. And they always need a local contact to be able to bring clients into town. So while they're out scaring up leads, in food service industry, I don't know anybody in the food service industry, so I don't know even where to go start looking. But I know that when they bring me the lead, then they're like saying, okay, Mr. Hess, here they are. What are the hurdles? So we went and walked through the building with them 2 or 3 times, up on the roof, we got some folks down from the state. We're just making sure that they know that we're a business-friendly community. We're in their corner. We'll do whatever we can to make this happen. And
I assume that happened with the beef jerky place and.
Exactly.
It was even more in depth than that. Yeah,
because they were actually interested in that at one time too, if I remember. They took a tour of GE plant.
Yeah, but
Work out.
turning the ABB facility into a food grade facility would be a much heavier lift than.
Yeah, right. But I mean, it's your involvement that same way. Am I correct?
Yes. So, I don't know how much I divulge on some of these things. Some of this stuff is, you don't want to know how the sausage is made in some ways. But I can tell you that Western Smokehouse Meats would not be in our community without the efforts of our organization. Because there was a lot of back and forth between the soon-to-be owner of the building, because Western Smokehouse don't own it. They lease it. And so when the new buyer was coming to push for the sale of that, our organization has first right of refusal on that building. And we were prepared to exercise that if that client and that new business didn't get together and make something happen. We were going to make it happen. We would have had to go and get a little loan to buy the building, but we would have. But basically, those are the kinds of leverages and pressures that happen behind the scenes that nobody knows, and we don't go blabbing about it or whatever. It's just, those are the things that happen to make a large deal possible.
Councilman Johnson, if I may, because there's something really important here that Jeremy touched on already that I want to circle back to, because you're asking a really good question. How exactly do we make these things happen? And you know what it starts with? Available land and available buildings. So when those leads come, or we have the available land or building to then connect these things, but if we don't have the land or the buildings, when we do get leads from the state, or we do get phone calls from folks that are looking to cite a business, we can't even respond. It's, if somebody calls and says, I am looking for a 10-acre parcel with this kind of road access, or they call and say, I need a 30,000 square foot building, and it needs to have this kind of ceiling height, and I need at least 2 loading docks and a parking lot for 100 employees, what do you have? And if you don't have it, the conversation's over. And the reason I wanted to circle back to that is because in our 5-year plan, we really need to work with West Burlington City Council on that West Burlington Business Park that we envision out there at Deep Road Irrigation and behind Southeast Iowa Regional Planning. We are running out of available land and buildings. So all these successes that Jeremy has been having and some big projects that he's courting right now.
It's all because they have a building and a site to land at. That's step one.
Yeah, and so it's a high priority opportunity for us to really work together closely over the next 5 years, because we are very much running out of land and building. And when you don't have the inventory, just like housing, if you don't have the inventory, you can't make the sale. And West Burlington is critical to that next step for the whole region. Critical.
Thank you, guys.
You bet.
Thanks for the.
You bet.
We get a little passionate because we live and breathe this, and this is what we do. You know, I know that Jeremy and I are like in this way. Yes, this is our career, it's our profession, but we do what we do because we believe in the communities and we believe in making a difference. See, when we have the opportunity, whether it's helping a small entrepreneur get started or whether it's a big company coming to town, we know that those jobs, they change the lives of families. They lift entire communities. That's really a heady thing to go to work every day and know when we're working with our school districts. Yes, we're working about workforce, and we have employers that say workforce is the #1 issue, do something about it. But I know when we work with schools, when we walk into classrooms, we get to connect with kids, we might actually be able to help a young person change their generational story. Maybe that young person's going to be the first one to go off to a community college or a technical college or step into a really good paying profession. That is what I call working for that emotional paycheck. That's why you hear that passion that creeps into our voice, because we do what we do because we know it makes a difference. And we're just inviting you to invest in us and our journey so we can keep doing these things and more.
And just so you know, out of 100 leads, we miss 99 of them. They don't, it's very, very few wins in my role. I mean, so that's why I get, I go home and kick my dog a lot, but it's very, very few wins in this business. And so you celebrate each one, and that's why each one is critical, because these companies they're making the investment. I'm not. They're making the investment, and they'll go wherever it works. And so out of 100 leads, we're lucky if we land one or maybe two. So that's just the nature of the beast.
Job shadowing in the school. I don't know what part of that you guys have. I don't know that, but it just reminds me that my wife, when we first met, she was job shadowing at General Electric. That's how we met, and that's how we got married. And so it does make a change in life. And if it wasn't for that shadowing, we would have never met.
We can't take credit for that. Damn it, I wasn't
But
here.
no, that's a true story.
That's cool.
Okay, well, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you for your time.
Thank you for inviting us back. We very, very much appreciate the opportunity to go deeper than the last time. Look, no PowerPoint.
Thank you.
I'll add to it real quick. I'll be very brief as a economic development board member as well, and also a business owner here in West Burlington. You know, I have a lot of direct benefit from the work that these guys do by not only bringing jobs to town, but you know, the housing study that was done in 2016, yes, it was commissioned by regional planning. However, they had a lot of to do with that, and support for the tax credits that are available statewide that I utilized on Lane Drive for the 14 units on the west side. You know, I got $500,000 that was contributed to that, and a lot of that was because of the work that these guys do. The town-owned project I'm building right now out there on Houston and Lane Drive, there again, the same thing. You know, the Economic Development Group and the Chamber leads that housing task force and the studies that are done with that. In order to apply for those tax credits, that is a criteria that is required to have. And so without their work in that, you know, I received $1 million for that project. I would not have received that if it wouldn't have been for their work. So, so I support 100% what they do. And from a business standpoint, we, for the Partnering for the Future campaign, we've signed up for $25,000 commitment ourselves to that. So just wanted to note that.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Hey, one more quick question while you're here. The gas pipeline, the natural gas line. You got any updates on that?
So after a lot of study, that gas pipeline, we discovered that basically all of the upgrades that would need to increase gas through the pipelines that run through here all would have to be made out of state. The shortages are not necessarily in our state. So we've had folks from the governor's office, Debbie Durham's office. We have convened many meetings, and A&R, who operates the pipeline, has finally come out and said, after 2 years and lots of money spent, that it's more of an issue with access and compression upstream. So it's in like Minnesota and Michigan, and so we thought maybe the state, if it was just a matter of getting a bigger pipe in the ground, we thought the state would come along and help us find a solution to that. But that is not the case. That is, it's a matter of from coming from the source.
I thought the source was in Yarmouth or up in that area.
Well, yeah, but Yarmouth is fed by, you can see the map of all the pipelines. It all comes from, it either comes from the Permian Basin or it comes from up north in Canada. So basically, we haven't just thrown up our hands and said, well, the heck with it. But I think what we're seeing now is some new technology that's coming online that, for example, down by Weaver, in that ground I told you we studied, there's new projects that are eyeballing that area that basically take, I didn't do very good in my Mr. Science kit, so I'm not sure how to say this right, but they can take, there's tons of water down there, and then they can take solar energy with electricity and water, they can make hydrogen, and out of hydrogen, they can make a natural gas of some kind. I don't know how it works, okay, I didn't, like I said, but so that is probably more the focus that you'll see to see any further expansion of the fertilizer plant is going to be some kind of a generated gas supply, because, you know, once the Alliant switched from coal at the generation station, from coal to natural gas, that took more gas offline. And I just, all I know is we came up with that study, and then Mike Norris would be able to share with you much better, but it was about $300 and some million for us, and it was going to be commitments that were going to be made out of state. And our governor said, we're not putting $300 million in another state. So.
That's sad. Thank you.
Turn your thermostats down. It'll help.
Not up.
And Ryan, since you're here, when do you think you'll have first occupancy in the condos there that you're working on?
We were hoping for this fall. We had some delays with some infrastructure materials, with deliveries, dates and availabilities. So it's looking like some of our electrical cabinets should arrive now towards the end of November, we're hoping. We actually received 2 of the 8 early. That we just received last week, so I'm still waiting on several of them. So we're hoping by, you know, end of November, 1st of December, potentially. But we'll see how it shakes out.
For occupancy or for electrical installation? Or
We're getting electrical installation, so then occupancy probably just after first.
looking, okay, thank you.
Yep.
That, just wanted to know.
Hopefully things will shake out. You think COVID things are over, but there's still a lot of things that are not available. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Do we need any other further action on this?
Well, council will need to make a determination at some point in time on what that allocation would be.
Okay. And we have a suggestion from, for contribution, or?
Yeah.
Yes, there was a recommendation of $50,000.
Over 5 years.
Yep.
Yes, over 5 years. Burlington hasn't made a recommendation, or hasn't made a determination yet. I think you indicated at the last meeting what their last and their potential contribution was, 75 and 100.
Correct. They have not voted on a final, but they certainly signaled that they will, they're doing everything they can to raise, but they have not voted, they've not signaled, like everybody, budget process.
Same with Des Moines County. Des Moines County has indicated that they will increase as well, but they can't say yes today. So, City of West Minneapolis came up 75% from their last campaign. And then Danville's in, but we haven't presented to them.
They came up 75%, but what was they given? Can you share that?
You went for me on the spot. They went from 10,000 to 20, well, they doubled. They went to 20,000.
They were at 10,000, went to 20,000, spread over 5 years.
Yes, ma'am.
So from 2,000 a year to 4,000 a year. Thank you.
Our contributions come out of tax increment financing, and I can recommend that they continue to come out of there, but
And they ask on us is 5,000 a year to increase to 10,000 a year to get to 50,000. That's
Can
what we
you
talked about with most
tell me where you came up with these numbers? Is it based on tax brackets that we're in, our taxable community sizes? Like, how did you come up with these numbers?
So, first of all, we have set a $1.75 million price tag to our 5-year plan. And again, that's over 5 years. So we start with what's it going to cost for us to deliver what we have in the plan, and then how do we go about that? And frankly, we have asked all of our current Partnering for the Future investors to increase, and almost all of them we've asked for them to consider double. Now, if they're already contributing $150,000, we didn't ask them to double and go up to $300,000. That is that's kind of a big ask. But our costs have only gone up, and our cost of some of the new programs that aren't even, these are new initiatives, many of these things are not ongoing. Costs have only increased. And so another way to put it is if the Greater Burlington Partnership in its campaign stays the same or goes less than last time, then we're actually even further behind because all operating costs are going up. I think I read the postage stamps be going up yet again. So I can't tell you that we have a specific formula for West Burlington based on your budget or your population or the taxes that you collect. It's nothing like that. We've looked at what your current investment is and asked, like we have many others, to double. We were their company just yesterday.
Affinitas, formerly Hawkeye Pettershap.
And their previous investment, they more than doubled. Their previous investment was $10,000, and they came up to $25,000. So they more than doubled their. And we have seen some of that, and we have also signed 20 new first-time investment companies, which is good because we've also lost some. ABB was an investor, but they're not here for us to talk to about investing again. So I'm sorry I don't have a more specific question. It sounds like you might have been looking for a formula, but I don't have one.
Just
as far as how did we get to the request?
In my opinion, doubling the ask is kind of a stretch for me to double in one cycle.
Well, but if you look back at previous cycles, West Burlington has been flat from a 10-year picture because this is a third campaign. So when you invested in, I guess it was 2018 or 19, it was the same. There wasn't an increase then. So if you look at it over a longer period of time.
We'll talk about
Sure, but at the end of the day, you know, whatever you feel is right, we would just like to see West Burlington still partnering with us. When you invest with us, we're that much more going to work for you. You become your economic development guy. And so you get to set what you think the value of that is.
Wait a minute, the more we invest, or the more we give you, the more you'll work for us? Is that what you just said? I think that's what you just said.
I'm just saying
Kinda.
that as we work for our investors, I guess I'm trying to find a polite way to say that, but we work for our investors. And so not being an investor kind of puts us in a bit of a pickle, because we work first and foremost for our investors. That's who we're here for.
Right.
But we're always going to work for our region. We do that regardless. But we're hopeful that you will come to a number that makes sense for you, and that you'll continue to invest in our organization. And Greg, anytime that you shoot us an email or make that phone call, we're going to respond.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for giving up your evening.
Yeah. One more time.
Did you want to table the matter to a date certain or did you want to discuss it further tonight? Or what's your pleasure? Or simply table the matter?
Let's table it and or new information. You can put it on the next agenda if you want.
That sounds reasonable. So table it to a date certain, November 1st?
Yeah, November
Okay.
1st, next meeting. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Number 4, 5? Four. Consider a resolution adopting the West Burlington Capital Improvement Plan for fiscal years 2023 through 2027.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, consider amending Resolution 2023-48 concerning the sale of surplus property.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support.
So why are we changing that and not do it in the normal way?
Not doing the
Why are
normal
we
way?
amending the resolution to not put it on the city or the statewide thing?
We had an offer where the bed is getting installed, where they take it off, so I don't have to haul it back and pick it up with a trailer. A buyer comes around and buys them, and he offered me well over what salvage yards that I could find that would buy that for resale.
That's just the bed.
It's a bed, a tailgate, and a bumper.
So,
And
but-
then it's also another tailgate and bumper that we've been storing in our pole barn off of another truck when a Tommy lift was installed when it was new. He's interested in all.
And the previous resolution was very specific in its method of disposal. So we wanted to bring it back for your consideration, so that, since we had a buyer that was
And I'm okay with the buyer on
At
the
market.
box and the tailgate
Right.
stuff, but what about the vehicles? This also amends that, doesn't it? Description of surplus property says 2006 truck and 2001 truck and the
No,
plow.
I think
and the
where
plow.
they X'd it out, where they inked it out instead of on a public website, Gov Deals.
the only ones that we had the buyer for were for the.
Yeah.
were for
And I
the-
thought Kelly would explain this as, to me, as if she was just putting it into, not saying that if that buyer doesn't want it, we still won't sell that on GovDOT. It's nothing changing on the trucks. They're gonna go to GovDOT. I don't have a, I mean, we're gonna.
She just took out the very specific reference.
So am I reading that wrong?
So the only thing we're selling to this guy are
Those 3 items.
But
the
that's
other
not what we
things-
say here.
it is. The other things are still going to be listed on GovDeal. It is what it says, it's just not specifically saying GovDeals.
We took Gov Deals out so that we could utilize the sale that we already had. That's all that we're doing. That's the only change that we're making. It was too specific. We couldn't sell it to that gentleman based on the resolution that was approved last time. We needed it to be more generic.
His offer versus us having to handle and take a trailer and then set it here somewhere and then try and do it. It's a truck delivered, they take everything off. I go pick up the truck and drive home, The other guy sends us a check and he goes and picks up the bed and takes it to his place. I have no handling or shipping or anything like that with it.
Forget about the cost you pay to put it on Gov Deals in there.
Oh, the cost, yeah. put it
That's quite a
on.
bit too that we're saving.
I'm not saying which ones. It's
Nothing else
just-
changes,
Just an
just those
opportunity
three
on that
items.
particular truck.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Yep.
Roll call, please.
Johnson?
Aye.
Lees?
Aye.
Young?
Aye.
Newberry?
Aye.
Crowner?
Aye.
Motion carries. First reading of an ordinance establishing regulations for solar energy systems.
Well, I guess motion to approve.
Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion?
I've got some problems with the language that I brought up, but
Just a quick introduction, I guess. Mark had brought this forward. We're able to deal with residential installation as it stands, but for the commercial and industrial, we don't have anything that regulates it. So he brought this ordinance forward for council consideration so that we can consider these requests as they come in forward. We're getting more and more of these requests, both residential and commercial and industrial. These are for the not just solar farms, but for the standing, for the panels that would be adjacent to a building or on the property rather than on the roof, like in the residential area. And we just simply don't have anything that regulates it, and so we're looking to bring it forward. And yes, the one item, Andy, I'll let you bring that up. But
yeah, just simple.
Makes sense.
I think there has to be some minimums set, because otherwise, like very first sentence on, I think, what am I on? Page 2 of the ordinance, a ground-mounted solar energy system is not permitted in a residential district or in a lot, blah, blah, blah. They're basically, like a normal little solar light would not then be allowed based on that, because we don't set any minimums of size or power wattage or anything like that. So I think my wife has a little flower with a little light on it that would normally be permitted. And so I just think we need to set some kind of minimums there of things. We all know we're trying to say you can't have a giant system out in your yard, but this limits everything.
Well, this eliminates anybody that wants a solar panel for their house in the town.
This is just ground-mounted regulations. The residential is already covered in under code and.
It would have to be mounted on the house or the garage?
That's where they're, yes.
It'd have to be rooftop mounted.
Yes, that's what's done, rather than the ground mounted in the commercial and industrial, yes.
So if somebody had a lot like what we got out here at the parking lot, it's okay for us to have a parking lot full of solar panels on the ground and
Not now.
not for me? If I wanted to put it in
Definitely
my
not.
backyard, that's back in the back.
What do you, are you in, I'm trying to remember what you're in right now, residential.
Well, let's just say I was
Yeah,
in-
I mean, what, the concern is, in a, residential neighborhood, are you gonna have these, ground-mounted solar systems all, in the yards? And, yeah, that is a concern, in neighbors, in residential areas. So, absolutely, we see that as a concern.
But currently, you cannot do that, right? I mean,
But
that's
we don't.
for a residential area.
The roof-mounted ones are regulated under the code, and looking to limit these ground-mounted systems to commercial and industrial. We don't have any regulations that are specific for us to be able to regulate these types of systems.
So if a person's got a fenced-in backyard and you don't see it, what's the harm, I guess?
Like, I can tell you the harm just from showing houses, especially the ones like sitting right across from Notre Dame, where they've put in those huge amount back behind Notre Dame, and that's all your windows look out right at just like the side of these solar things. It's ugly. People don't like it, to have that block their view. So, no different than having chickens next door. Sometimes it makes it hard to sell a house.
How are the chickens coming along?
How is it?
I've been training my dog to eat chicken.
You've been getting eggs? You have free eggs.
But that would be why. But there's no minimum to kind of say I just think that language needs adjusted.
Right.
Can we put in there that we could go to the Board of Adjustments to get something in a residential area? Because I think that there's areas that would be okay.
Are there other ordinances we can look at from other cities?
Other examples? Yeah, I can talk to Mark.
Well, if we would go with what we have, would a resident always have the option to request a variance?
No.
No, not under the current one.
This
Well,
ordinance,
unless it's
however, is not
states.
dealing with our
It's not residential.
So
This is,
what we're talking about is not residential. If you want to change and talk about residential, then that's another.
No, it is
topic.
part of it.
I agree that's not the point, but this actually does have verbiage that responds
To that, okay,
residential,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I must have.
a ground-mounted solar energy system is not permitted in a residential district or a lot that abuts a residential district.
Yeah,
It-
there should be a mechanism there where,
But again, can't a person, if they want a variance, come to, before us and say, hey, I want to
Board of
put
Adjustment.
this, I've got a 2-acre lot, or I want to put this in my backyard, can I? You know, we wouldn't care, for example, today, if somebody put a solar panel in the backyard of the places on Lane behind Target there, facing the cornfield. Now, if our comprehensive plan is such that we're going to take residential housing out into the cornfield, well, then maybe we don't want a solar panel in the backyard.
a better example, or just as good of an example, the zoning might be different, but all the houses on Gear, they have road or yards that goes all the way back to railroad tracks. Nobody sees that, you know, and I know it's different zoning, but that would be a case where, what harm is that?
If you leave it to the Board of Adjustment, you have no right to, you have to take the Board of Adjustment to court in order to change that, just to clarify. So there is a concern. If you want to regulate, the best opportunity for council to regulate is through the Code of Ordinances, rather than allowing for a variance, because you have no say on variance. Planning and zoning, the council can amend anything that planning and zoning does, but on Board of Adjustment, the only way you can challenge what the action they take is through taking them to court. So I would suggest, depending on what you'd like to do, we put it in the ordinance rather than provide for a variance. But yeah, we can look at that and come back. I guess you have two options, if you want to proceed with the first or not. Obviously, you've got two other readings, and the language can be amended. So however you'd like to proceed. Or we could come back and then you could, maybe, you know, if he's got a significant number, we might ask to waive the third or something like that. You want us to bring?
I think we almost need a work session on that one to tally that out.
I don't know if I bring.
Because we're all going to have different opinions.
We got a lot of work session stuff we need to do. I'll probably just
Can
bring.
we add that one to one?
Bring it back at a regular meeting for discussion.
Is there a real urgency that we can't just put on with another work session?
Well, he's been getting a number of solar requests lately, so it seems appropriate to get it on and deal with it on an ordinance. Now, we can bring it back to the next
Go through the first
meeting.
reading, and then you look and see if there are other examples that we can, like, fix that.
Yeah, we can look at language to tweak it. You have the ability to change it during the process. You don't have to go with it as written.
Well, when we change it, then
In that case, all in favor of this first reading, or do I have to?
Need a roll call.
I need a roll call, sorry.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Lees,
Aye.
Young,
Aye.
Newberry,
Aye.
Crowner,
Aye.
Johnson.
No.
Motion carries. We'll see the second reading and come back to this. I've lost track. Number 7, consider resolution accepting contingency agreement regarding the acquisition of title for the right-of-way related to the Gear Avenue Trail project.
Motion approved. Support.
Motion and support.
Any questions? I'm simply trying to cover all of our bases here based on what's been going on with the property.
Sounds like we're doing the right thing.
Thank you.
In that case, roll call, please.
Young,
Aye.
Newberry,
Aye.
Crowner,
Aye.
Johnson. Lees.
Aye.
Motion carries. Seeing no citizen concerns or inquiries, we will consider going into closed session in accordance with Iowa Code, Chapter 21.51I, to evaluate the professional competency of an individual whose appointment, hiring, performance, or discharge is being considered when necessary to prevent needless and irreparable injury to that individual's reputation, and that individual requests a closed session.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. We're going to give us a 5-minute
Yeah.
break, and then we will go into closed session at that point.
Up there.